Hello, my name is Sarah Landak, and this is my final assessment and instruction presentation. So, to begin, I want to talk a little bit about my student that I decided to focus on for this research project. So, I'm going to use the initials DS for privacy reasons. DS is a male student in kindergarten at Turner Bartels K through 8 school and is 5 years old. He is in my kindergarten class that I teach every Tuesday. So I've gotten to know him very, very well. And some of the things that I have learned about him are that he really enjoys recreational reading, and some of his favorite things to read about are animals, cars, and just kind of anything fun, funny, or lighthearted. He really enjoys reading just fun books that make him laugh and that are kind of a light, easy read he tends to gravitate towards. So I chose this student because I have been working with DS in math already for my internship research. And so I thought that it would be a really good idea to help him in reading as well, just so I can kind of see if I can help him with all of his subjects to see also kind of a correlation of what the work I do for helping him with math, how that differs from the work that I help him with in reading. So, yeah. So, an overview, over the past semester, I have been conducting research on his reading and writing abilities and looking at his phonological awareness, as well as just trying to get a grasp of any areas that he may be struggling in with reading or writing. And some of the areas that I noticed that he struggled the most with were digraphs and blending and segmenting sounds. I took a series of 4 tests for this student to get all of the data that I have received, and then after thorough research, developed a plan on some activities and things of that sort to help him kind of improve his use of digraphs and blends. So, to begin, I started with the ARIS assessment, which is the elementary reading attitude assessment. So this assessment is designed to see how a student's attitude is about reading recreationally versus academically. And as I already mentioned, DS tends to gravitate towards reading recreationally. The difference between reading recreationally and academically is that when reading recreationally, a student likes to read books that interest them and not a book that they were assigned to read. Academically is reading a informational book or just a book that they were assigned to. So he likes to be able to pick out his own books from the library. I'm constantly seeing him trying to go to the library to pick out a new book, and he tends to pick some similar ones, all sort of his interests. So he scored almost even between recreational reading and academic reading, however, mostly recreational reading. So he does tend to have a very positive attitude towards recreational reading. The percentile rank was 90% for that. And then academic was only 75%. So overall, with reading, he does tend to have a very positive attitude towards it. And yeah, he just tends to enjoy reading things that he is very interested in rather than things that his teacher requests that he reads. So the next assessment that I did was the concepts of print assessment, and this is an individual test that tests a person's ability to navigate a book and being able to see different aspects of a book, such as the pages, where to begin reading, sentence structure in a book, finding the title or author, the title page, and things of that sort. So I tested him on this using one of his favorite books, and what I noticed was that he actually scored perfectly on the concepts of print assessment. He scored a 13 out of 13. He was able to get everything correctly. He was able to find the layout of the book, the front of the book. He was able to see where the pictures were versus where the words were. He was able to see where to start reading. He was able to know that you read from the left page first and then the right page. And overall, he just did a really great job on the concepts of print assessment. He knew his way around a book, and that was very apparent. So there wasn't really any areas I feel like that he struggled a lot. However, I did notice that when I had him read some of the sentences, that he did struggle a bit with blending and segmenting sounds. So just kind of getting big words together, sometimes he would have to sound them out a little bit longer. So that was kind of an area that I noticed that he struggled a little bit more on. Next, I'm going to talk about some of my instructional recommendations for DS and specifically helping with blending and segmenting sounds. One activity that I know that would be really helpful from a textbook that I have been using over this semester is using Elkanin boxes. So Elkanin boxes are little grids with specific boxes in them, and you put a word into the box and you put different parts of the word into the different sections of the box, and the student is responsible for trying to name the different parts of the word and sounding them out, and then being able to blend them together to create the entire word. So if I were to ask him to spell or to give me the sounds of the word ocean, he would I would ask him to say the beginning of the word, which is osh, and then the ending part of the word, which is in. And the job of the Elkanin boxes is to help them figure out how to segment words and then eventually blend them together to create the entire word. Next assessment that I took was the PAST assessment, which is the Phonological Awareness Screening Test. This is a very popular test for reading teachers or for literacy teachers to get a grasp of the students' phonological awareness skills, and eventually diagnose students with learning disabilities if they have them. My student has never been diagnosed with a learning disability, so he is considered an average kindergarten student. However, he still does have his struggles, and I noticed during the test that he struggled a lot with digraphs and separating syllables. So if you'll notice on the test, when we are looking at the level M, which is right on the bottom right, he struggled to transform the word sift to sipped. So he kind of had struggles with middle sounds and being able to exchange middle sounds for different ones. So I noticed that was kind of an area of improvement that he needed. And then he also just digraphs in general. He tended to struggle a little bit with on the test. He ended up getting a 39 out of 52 correct on the test for each of the words. And then, but automatic, he only got a 35 out of 52. So he was able to say some of the words out loud and kind of spell the words out loud and change the sounds up. But it took him a little bit longer with some, so he scored worse on automatic than the ones he got correct. So some of the recommendations that I have for DS are that he works on just practicing digraphs consistently. I read an article from an honors student at University of Nebraska, Omaha, who talked about how she worked with her young students and read a book to them out loud, and then they had them highlight digraphs that they noticed. By practicing digraphs over and over again, especially with young students like mine, it really helps to get it ingrained into their head because, as the saying goes, practice makes perfect. And I believe that if he were to practice digraphs over and over and over again, that it would eventually get into his head and he would be able to succeed. So the next test that I did was the primary spelling inventory test, or the PSI test. The PSI test is a spelling test designed to see how a student spells words, and specifically breaking down the words into different sections of the word. So for example, the word catch, we would be looking at how they spelled the entire word, but specifically if they got the initial consonant right, the final consonant right, how they did with the digraphs, such as ch, or the way that they use blends, the different vowels in the words, etc. So from this spelling test, it was clear once again that DS struggled with digraphs and blends. He scored the worst on these portions of the test with a 3 out of 7 and a 5 out of 7. As you'll notice on the test, there were some areas where it was a 1 out of 7, but those were words that we didn't really practice. Most of those words were words that we did not practice because for kindergarten students, it is mandatory that you start with only the first 15 words. So I read the first 15 words to him out loud, and he was told to spell those. So that is why that score was a bit lower. So I scored him, I looked at the data from just the first 15, and the digraphs and blends were the main needs that I noticed for DS. So my instructional recommendations for him are to practice words out loud with the teacher, and being able to determine which parts of words were not the same. So this is an activity that I found from the book Learning Through Poetry, Consonants, Blends, and Digraphs by Mary Jo Fresh. She talks about how it can be helpful to practice words out loud because they can get that oral practice of words rather than just writing it down. And by doing so, I believe this would help him a lot, again, with just consistent practice, as well as being able to apply the things that he learns about digraphs with the other activities into this activity. So to conclude, DS is in the most need of help with digraphs and blends. This is a struggle for a lot of kindergarten students, so he is still considered a late kindergarten, early first grade reading and writing level. So I'm not too worried about any sort of struggle of him moving on to the first grade. However, I do think that these are some areas he could use a little bit of extra help in just to get to exactly where he needs to be so he is at the perfect pace to be ready for first grade. So I created a little library of books that I believe he would find very interesting and would really enjoy and be able to engage in. So the 5 books that I picked out were The Couch Potato by Jory John and Pete Oswald. And then there was an old lady who swallowed a rose. This is a really popular series that I read when I was younger, and I know that it's just a really funny series, so I believe he would really enjoy this one. The next one is Pete the Cat Plays Hide and Seek. Pete the Cat is a very popular series that I have seen him reach for a few times in our own kindergarten library, so I think he would really enjoy that. Next is Pig the Slob. I think this would again make him laugh a lot, and I think it would just overall boost his interest in reading and just kind of boost his attitude. And then the last one is Splat the Cat. So if you will notice, multiple of these books have to do with animals, which is something of interest to him. So with Pete the Cat, Splat the Cat, and Pig the Slob, all are books where the main character is an animal, which he tends to gravitate towards a lot. So I wanted to pick books that I knew that he would enjoy. So my post-assessment plan is I want to begin by practicing in small groups on digraphs and blends with DS and other students who might need similar help, just so I can give that kind of extra attention to DS and make sure that he's making gains where I want him to. And then I would move on to creating whole class activities that specialize in digraphs and blends. For example, there's an online application called Teach Your Monster to Read, which is a specific website for young students who need extra help in reading and writing skills. And finally, I believe that after the student has improved, I would like to test him again using the past NPSI test to see where he has improved and what areas I can continue to offer him support. And that is my final assessment and instructional plan project. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you.